That felt doable, and it felt really nice to be like, I am not a harmful person in the world, even though it had been a while, I think, since I had acted like that. But like, I don't think I had formally retired myself from such activities. And then we just kind of got to know each other a little bit. But I remember very clearly the specific moment looking at him and being like, that is a high value man, which is language that now the trad wives have taken, and that's not the way I mean it. But, you know, just like a quality man who's like kind and attractive and like that you don't have to sacrifice one for the other, and like, you know, the person you would want in an emergency, and you know, the person who's going to be like, I don't know, like notice that somebody needs a fucking seat and gives their seat up, like a good person, you know.
How could you tell
but
that
like
just on
too.
sight?
Well, so I've got the goggles for men.
Clearly.
Yeah.
I'm not going to ask what you saw.
Yeah.
You didn't see me.
I only turn them on when they're like, you know, necessary for a personal judgment. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. It's like I'm an ethical superhero.
Right.
Yeah. But then, you know, I figured out that he was not married. And then we had like a really nice, we just like dated, and then it was fast for sure. But like, yeah, I was like, this is where I stay.
You wrote about, or you said, as an older and saner person, I no longer have any interest in that danger or in damage, but I remain, however, drawn in by the pull of violence. The only men I'm attracted to are those with relationships to violence. So what is N's relationship to violence, and why does that pull you in?
So he is a third generation martial artist. He was in his younger life like training as a professional mixed martial artist, and his whole life is about combat sport. He's a coach now, and coaches a lot of high level athletes, and his, you know, like that kind of violence is very normalized in his world. And I don't know what my deal is, but like, I just have always been like that with men, where I'm like, I want like the strong, like hyper masculine, like all of it. Like it's so, the gender inverse of this is like so horrifying that sometimes I'm like, I can't believe this is how I am. But I also like, whatever, it is what it is. But like I had a bad picker, so I picked men who were harmful to me, or men who were like harmful to others or themselves. And I didn't understand that like that there were different ways of being violent that were not harmful. And then when I met him, that's like what his whole life is about. Like he's the most gentle person, but also he can like kill you like with his hands. Like I liked that.
Yeah.
Being drawn in by the pull of violence, when you write about that, did that change at all after having a child, or is it still the same?
I mean, I don't think I would ever want to be with like, I'm certain I would never want to be with a man that was like in any way rough with me. Like that's like not a vibe for me at all anymore. I'm super sensitive. I'm like, I get hurt feelings. Like I don't want to like, no. But you know, I think when I think about like I don't know, like the archetypes and the aesthetics of what I find sexually desirable, aesthetically desirable, just like whatever that like magnet thing is like, you know, strength and masculinity and all of these like very stereotypically like manly things.
But it's interesting that he has this like duality of being gentle.
Totally.
In certain ways.
Totally.
That I find is very rare, and also it's like such a conversation in the culture today. Like we were just talking about this, how Mark Zuckerberg came out and he was like, we need more masculinity in the workforce. But like, I feel like what he's talking about is this like Lord of the Flies, Squid Game sort of like social Darwinism. Whereas I feel like what your partner sounds like is sort of, it's like protective and like, but not in a way that's arbitrary or like insecure.
That's right.
Or
just like he feels really safe to be around because he doesn't really have ego shit going on, and he doesn't really have like, he's always paying attention, but he's not like like that's how I am. I'm always like danger, 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 and he's not like that at all. He's super chill. But like if there's like someone coming over there, like he sees it before I do, you know. And I do think there is something like I have always been like, I have a strong desire for like a protective force in my life, and there's something I like about that, about like I don't really worry about anybody breaking into the house if he's home, you know.
In the book, you talked about how the laws interplay with the work that you used to do, and you talk about there being a breathtaking loophole of the legal system, that in most states a minor can at once be legally considered both the victim and the perpetrator of the crime of selling sexual acts. Can you describe the loophole and why you talked about it as being breathtaking?
Yeah, so, and, you know, as a lawyer, definitely, like the book was fact-checked, but, you know,
Right, no.
fact-check me further. So when you are under 18, if you are... So I don't even know how to talk about it because the language is confusing. If you're under 18, you can't consent to sex, right? So someone... like it's sexual assault if someone's having sex with you. But if you are under 18 and you are like, and I'm using quotes here, like working as a sex worker, which we've just established like can't be happening because you can't like give consent, you can be legally liable for, you know, for prostitution, for whatever you have been, even though you are not legally able to give consent. So like that to me is so fucked up. You know?
Yeah.
And like for my context, I was 17 years old and like very much invested in what I was doing. Like I had a lot of agency and, you know, et cetera. I think it was fucked up in a lot of ways, but it is very fucking different from like a 13-year-old who's being physically coerced to, you know, like provide, to be sexually assaulted for someone else's financial gain. Like that is one of the most fucked up things I can think of. And then that child is then, like criminal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's not just like what happens to you then, it's what happens for the rest of your life, you know, like that it's very hard to move on with your life when you have a criminal record.
You write a bit about your relationship to men as an institution. So you say you're embittered towards men as an institution, which can be confusing because you also love individual men.
I love that line.
Thanks. I feel like a lot of women I know resonate, or like just people who date men, actually,
Yeah.
like all genders of people have resonated with that. I mean, some of the people that I love most in this world are men, you know, but I feel like protective of myself, protective of my child, protective of all of us, you know, around like men broadly. And then I always think of the men like that I know and love as like sort of more exceptions, you know, like they're safe.
Exceptions to the institution, or
yeah, that like I sort of expect men to be harmful and then I'm pleasantly surprised when they're not. But I'm never surprised when they're shitty.
So you write, the first lesson, the body is not yours, really. You don't get to decide what happens to it, where it goes, or who sees or touches it. Do you still feel like for women broadly, like that's the case with their bodies? And, you know, and it's so variable depending on where you are and like what country you live in. And, but do you think that like our bodies are ours, or like it's more we've relinquished, or like we're forced to relinquish in a way?
Yeah. I don't know, man. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, the context that I was writing that in, I was an adolescent.
Yeah.
And so on a, like, you're, like, my parents could take me somewhere and have me physically restrained. And there was no, like, paper for me to sign to tap out of that, you know? And that mostly doesn't happen when you're an adult unless you have a specific kind of problem, and then it still does. And I think that, I don't know the statistics on like involuntary commitment by gender, but certainly by anecdote and my own experience, like being hysterical is something that will get you treated a certain way, and that will get some of your freedoms removed.
Right.
If you push it, you know.
But it's always interesting to me to see, you know, comparing like, I don't know, Britney Spears and Kanye West.
Yes,
where it's
totally.
like both of them in certain ways have gone off the deep end, but the way that she was treated is so different from the way that he is treated.
Yeah. There's so much paternalism in the way that women's mental health is handled.
Yeah.
And I mean, like my own experience, like all these celebrities, and then totally you see like, and you know, gender isn't the only factor, you know,
Yeah.
but like you see a lot more of that than, you know, the other way around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
was it cathartic writing this book for you?
I don't think that's the word I would use, but something like that. I think that, not in that, like, it felt good, you know, not that at all. No, it felt bad. But afterwards, I do feel like I have felt a sense of kind of closure from some of those times in my life where it felt like, I do feel like there, like, if you imagine your life as, like, I don't know, like a tube of fabric, like, there are moments along the way where you, like, cinch a ribbon around each part and it makes, like, a section, you know? There's probably a better metaphor. I was trying not to say sausage. It seemed like a bad place to go.
Okay, Margo.
But so, like, I feel like it's segmented. I probably, like, the part of my life until my kid was born, in a way.
Yeah.
And that has felt clarifying, if not cathartic.
I thought it was interesting what you said earlier in the conversation about feeling really good about feeling invisible at times. And I resonate with that because sometimes I'll walk by, like, a posse of, like, 19-year-old boys and remember being back in high school and being, like, afraid.
Totally.
And now being like, oh, they're actually sort of afraid, not afraid, but sort of, like, hesitant or nervous to talk to me. And it feels nice.
Yeah.
Like, back to that theme of, like, freedom and liberation. And it's sort of like, oh, I'm just... So are you, to that point, are you, like, do you feel good about the process of, like, aging and, like, not that you're, like, aged, but, like, just sort of heading into your, like, 50s, 60s, 70s.
Totally.
Like, what do you think about that and how you'll evolve as a woman and person?
I think it's really too soon to tell. I have a lot of really conflicting experiences where, like, that, like, what you just described, I'm like, fuck yes, more of that. Like, make me the wizened old crone. And then, like, I'm also, like, I still really want to be hot. Like, that feels...
I know exactly
I don't want
what
to be
you
hot
mean.
every day.
No.
But, like, I want to be able to be hot when I want to be. And, like, I've had a couple moments where I'm like, oh, that's not how that feels. And I really don't like that.
Yeah.
And I think, like, the other thing is I've really seen this coming. Like, I think anyone who trades heavily on their looks when they're young is going to get fucked up by aging more than someone else. And I for sure did that. But, like, yeah, like, I don't like having wrinkles. That I could. Yeah. I don't like that.
I know what you mean, though. You want to, like, selectively feel.
I want to emotionally
times
age and physically remain the same.
Let
and
me
I
know
don't
how it
want to go
goes.
through menopause.
Okay. If you figure it out, just please tell me.
Yes. Reveal it.
Do you think you want to write more?
For sure. Yeah, I actually, I was thinking about the question you asked me, and while I don't have, it's not like something no one else knows, but I will say, this is the first place I've really talked about it, is I have a new book. It's not a book yet, it's a manuscript.
Nonfiction.
Nonfiction, yeah, that I'm going to hopefully do something with.
Can
And
you
how
tell
does
us
that
more?
work?
Yeah, I would love to.
Yeah.
So I'll answer your question first.
Okay.
It's I'm not good at talking about it yet, so this is actually really good for me because it, like, hones it every time.
Yeah.
So it started out as a book about breastfeeding, body feeding, and I became very interested in these factions of moms on the internet and the things that people care about and the ways that we build very fractious community about being like this versus this. And it started with, like, the breastfeeding moms versus the formula moms. And as a, you know, cultural critic, I got really interested in all of it. And then I went down, like, literal years of deep dive, also because this was the life I was living on the internet, in the mom forums, all of it. But then when I started writing, the book quickly also became about cows and the dairy industry. And then by the end of it, it's really, the book is very much just about anti-capitalism. So it's about all those things. And there's also, let's see, there's some about vegans. There's a sex essay. There's a lot about cows.
So it's a jack of all trades.
Yeah. Well, it's essays that are about, I think, like, at their core, they're about, like, nourishment and care and consumptiveness, right? Like, there's a lot about that, like, what we consume on a, like, you know, macro concept level. But yeah, the details feel like quite a melange.
Right.
But I think, like, all of my favorite nonfiction is like that. You know, like, read Bluettes. Like, that shit doesn't go together, but she made it go together.
Okay.
Okay. I think that's it, right?
Yes.
Awesome.
Thank you so much,
Thank you
Thank you
so
for
much
having me. I love
coming
chatting
on.
with you.
So much fun. Can't wait to read your new book.
Yes.
Thanks. Yeah, we'll keep all our fingers crossed.
We will.
for it.
We will. Thank you, everyone.